people, we can disagree to agree within an organization.
Always operational and with then they fail to rise to those positions.
Identify what toxicity exists within an organization.
Watching for cross-functional or the conflicts.
Welcome to Catalyzing.
Common mistake limiting potential candidates in the workplace.
One major mistake that I see a lot of candidates or potential employees make consistently is not preparing to have questions for interviews.
Limiting behavior for high potential talent, I would say, is staying too much in the comfort zone of execution.
So usually, they will do the necessary application and go on to even research the organization. But at the end of the interview conversation, particularly at the time where final decisions are meant to be taken for whether this candidate is a good fit for an organization or not, we do find out that the candidate usually will not have any intellectual question for the potential employer or the interviewer, as the case may be. And this is a challenge because it speaks a lot about the candidate. It's also speaking a lot about what kind of goals they have with that organization.
That's why they are high potential. They are always doing, and potential at the end of the day for high performance or high potential talent is to see them rise to executive positions. But when you are always executing, it's difficult to get to executive position. Executive position is where you think more strategically, where you think in systems, right? Where you design systems. But if you are always operational and executing, then you will fail to rise to those positions. So we see that in certain organizations, people that sort of are high potential always get passed on, with leadership opportunities, leadership role, because they are very good at executing, very good at day-to-day, but they fail to see systems, see patterns, design systems, and prepare patterns. So I think that the most common limiting behavior for high potential.
It doesn't have to be a lot, but just intelligent questions around what career trajectory or growth looks like within the organization. Those kind of questions are questions that allow for the potential employer or interviewer to understand the fact that this individual is purposeful, have clarity, and they are thinking about what growth looks like within the organization.
Negativity or toxicity in an organization.
As a leader in a business setting, in the workspace, I think that these things are really easy to pick up unless you want to deceive yourself.
Personally, how I identify negativity within a team and quickly uproot it before it becomes a poison to the entire team is I read body languages a lot. So if I see the body language of the individual as something that is not just them being disgruntled to ideas or opinions within the organization, but also trying to create a chaotic situations, meetings and all, it's some red flag for me, because people, we can disagree to agree within an organization.
Identify, these things is by watching for team energy, team morale, watching for cross-functional maybe conflicts, unsettling silence during team meetings. You can begin to pick up these cues and know that something is happening, and quickly address it before it escalates into underperformance, from the team. So I think that that's really how, as a leader, you watch for those things.
One of the organizations that I work with, we have a term where we say we disagree but commit. So somebody disagrees with an idea, with a policy within the organization, And that is the way that we are headed. I expect the individual to still commit. So if somebody is disagreeing and no longer commits, but then also finding individuals within the workspace that are not going to commit, those for me are red flags. And that's how I identify negativity within the team, within the organization. Usually when I identify such individual, I begin to have conversation around growth. So you don't just see an idea as bad, but what is your suggestion to help the idea? How are you making the idea better? Are you just saying no and then you're not giving us solutions? Then you are beginning to work with other people to ensure that whatever the organization is trying to achieve doesn't come to light. Those are the kind of things that gives the red flag for what negativity exists
When
within.
it has wrought the little fracas between team members in the same unit or maybe cross units, maybe gossip here and there, you're picking up things. That's how you can really, as a leader, pick up on things before they escalate.
Managing toxicity in an organization.
For me, every time I've had to address a conflict situation and also identify what toxicity exists within an organization, the first thing I do is to have like an inspiring session with the team, with the individuals involved in the team. First off, I want to know, are they above the line or below the line? Above the line is where people are excited and happy with an organization, the policies are all, and if their voices are being heard. Below the line are the places where people are already thinking about exit, they are disgruntled, they are not happy, and they feel their voices are not being heard.
The first thing would be to clarify the non-negotiables. What do we stand for as an organization? Right? Versus what is obtainable now. That would help you clarify the non-negotiables. When you clearly understand what you stand for as an organization, and it would help you know the things that you are doing that are not permissible. The second thing is to also identify and maybe remove or redeploy the toxic power centers, because an organization is not just toxic. Toxicity comes with the people in an organization, right? So you need to identify who those people are. You either redeploy them or remove them from the system. And this is even speaking to if the toxicity is coming from the leader, if they want to go on a sabbatical, like just keep some space,
Have some inspiring conversations with them. And then I'm able to identify if the entire unit is in line, the vision of the organization, where the organization is headed. And then I move straight very quickly into one-on-one sessions. In one-on-one sessions, I'm able to tell what each individual is doing at the moment, supporting the organization, and also thinking through their own personal growth. These questions allow me to be able to very much assess individuals where they are within the organization.
I think the third thing would be to redesign incentive and accountability system of the organization. Because it is the behaviors that are applauded that are repeated, and it is the behaviors that are punished that are stopped. You want to redesign around that, so that you are able to applaud the things that you want to see more of in terms of incentivizing them, and also putting accountability checks in place for the things that you do not want to see.
Reasons organization don't meet its target.
The organization constantly does not hit its targets, maybe financial targets or whatever target have been set from the start of the year. It could be a leadership problem. It could be strategy, but most importantly, it could be the execution plan. I like to tie the execution plan to the strategy, because in the strategy, we don't just set goals. A lot of the times, organizations set audacious goals that are not data-driven. For instance, if I say my organization is going to make 20 million at the end of the year, what is the data that shows that we can achieve 20 million? How did we come up with the 20 million financial target for the year? What is the historical data that convinces us to say that we have been able to do XYZ amount in the past, and then that is helping us to project for the following year? Those are very, very strategical questions that we must be answering. What experiments are we doing? What is our execution plan? All of these things are critical. Again, I cannot 100% narrow down to one of these things, but it could be a leadership problem, could be the strategy, and most importantly, the execution plan. The execution plan is critical because there must be learning that is designed surrounding the execution plan. Again, a goal is not only defined successful when you meet it. What is the learnings that comes from that goal?
Leadership capacity that fast track performance.
Leadership capacity that I can think of really that sort of encapsulates this question is enterprise thinking. What do I mean by that? I mean that it's the ability to connect decisions and actions with strategic objectives and long-term goals, regardless of how brilliant, regardless of how energetic you are. If all your corporate gymnastics, showing up early to work, greeting yes sir, all of those things, if they do not translate to the organization's strategic objective or even the long-term goal, if they do not add to the bottom line, regardless of whatever you do, how many errands you run, how many tasks you complete, how early you do them, if they do not align with the strategic objective of the organization or the long-term vision of the organization, I don't think that anybody would consider you for leadership responsibility. So I'll just say strategic thinking. And that's what speaks to the concept of entrepreneurship. Thinking as if you are the owner of the business, even though the business is not.
Difference between mentors and sponsors.
Difference between mentorship and sponsorship in leadership pipeline is pretty simple. A mentor advises. A sponsor, risks their reputation for you.
Having a corporate sponsor is key for every employee, regardless of where you're starting your career from. A mentor is someone who guides you and shows you the way, and then someone you can reach out to from time to time to support you in terms of key decisions that you have to make, either on your job or in your personal life. But a sponsor is very critical. And a sponsor is not the person who just guides you. He's someone who opens the door for you. There are many meetings that you are not seated. A sponsor sits in that meeting and say, you know what, I can trust this candidate, I can trust this employee, I can trust this staff to be able to do X, Y, and Z.
Can be a mentor, but a mentor may not necessarily be a sponsor. Their job for you would just stop at advising you. You're probably inspired by them. It walks the paths that you are looking to walk, and then you're asking specific questions, and they're telling you, okay, this is how I got here, this is how.
In terms of ideas, in terms of accomplishing a project, in terms of even starting businesses outside of the corporate space. But the sponsor within the corporate world is someone who opens the door for you, someone who challenges you, funds you, and ensure that you reach the highest of potentials that they might have identified from the time that they've decided to be your sponsor.
Corporate politics, unhealthy versus healthy.
Yeah, so on this question of corporate politics, how do I define politics, in a functional environment versus a dysfunctional environment? Let me first start by disabusing the minds of people around politics in the workplace. I think that politics is an integral part of life, right? And the workplace being part of life is not an exception. So if you shrug from the concept of politics, you're stunting your growth in any organizational structure.
Office politics can be good and can be bad. Again, politics exists within every organization. However, for healthy organizations, politics is usually where people are challenging themselves and wanting to be better. You're seeing that your colleague is doing something great, and then you're taking something from it. You're allowing it to improve your performance. There is healthy competition, an organization where they have all the parties, healthy corporate or office politics. But in a toxic environment, then you see people wanting to pull each other down. You now see where people are more passionate about
Positional environment is about influencing strategy. It's about influencing the strategic direction of the organization. While in a toxic and dysfunctional environment, workspace, it's about using your position to protect the truth, to protect ego, to protect bad culture, and you will find that in both organizations, you will see that there's a difference. While one is using using your positions, using your intellect, using your everything at your disposal to advance the strategic direction of the business, whether as a leader in that business, or the owner of the business, or as an entrepreneur, or as an employee. You see that the other one is just stunting the growth of the business because it's about protecting ego, it's about protecting the truth, or protecting the toxic work culture.
That kind of unhealthy politics where people are dragged down, where people are not supported for growth, where someone is trying to take the shine ahead of the other person rather than supporting, where the team no longer becomes the bigger picture, but individual wanting to be seen, then the organization begins to suffer. So, for a healthy organization, corporate politics supportive, or a toxic organization, corporate or office politics is pulling down.
Skills required in an organization.
I would say one particular skill that I like from employees is the proactive skill. I like it when an employee is proactive. I mean, do not wait to resolve everything. I mean, if it's a project or something within the organization, I do like it very much when an employee is raising their hands and saying, you know what, I think I can handle this project. I think I can do this. Again, sends a lot of message to your superiors, particularly in meetings where questions is thrown at your unit, and then just because your team lead or someone who you think should be answering the question is not answering and you have the answer, why not put your hands up to be able to, just answer the question and make your team look good. It's not about you, it's about your team. So I like it that people put their hands up in proactiveness to support the work that is being done within an organization. It's a leadership trait when people put their hands up all the time to take responsibility, to take accountability, to take ownership of the work that is being done and show that they really, really commit to the work that they are doing. So
Operating effective leadership in a compromised structure.
I would say that a leader must first anchor to principles, because there are leadership principles, and these principles, regardless of where you are situated, whether geographically or organizationally, they work the same. So anchor to principles of leadership, right? Another thing that leader can do is to document the decisions so that it's on record. I asked this person to do this, and in fact can become part of the organizational framework, or can become part of the organizational policy or procedures. And I think that another thing is to choose influence over compliance. You don't just want to adapt to the environment. You want to influence the environment. Where salt is salt for a reason, right? Light is light for a reason. It's because when introduced into a different kind of environment, the difference is clear. You get what I mean? You put salt in a food, for instance, that is tasteless and the taste is accentuated. Light is introduced into a dark room and suddenly you can see way and go for what you want, So you must choose influence over compliance.
Red flags employees should look out for.
one red flag that employees should look out for to really determine how toxic an environment is, to also influence their decision or whether to make a move, is when an organization thrives very much with unnecessary gossip. Unnecessary gossip is one that we make employees have unhealthy rivalry because someone is saying something and then it's not verified, but then news begins to fly And then I've seen in organizations how that influences or impacts on people's promotion. If an organization begins to promote people with toxic behavior, people who bully other people, or people who make other people's work not to look good just for their growth, then that organization is definitely a toxic place. And one or any employee who is dealing with that or who have to deal with that should be considering to make a move.
Career path and
How I
transition.
would define a career path as against the career direction. Career path for me speaks to promotion ladder, within a defined organizational structure at time. It's say I work in Mobile and I entered as on entry level staff. I want to exit the organization. Then I will chart my career path. Career direction speaks to strategic positioning, strategic positioning for long-term relevance. When you want to become a thought leader, using the same Mobile example, you want to become a thought leader in the oil and gas sector, someone that everybody references the thought or the direction of where the industry is going to. You are strategically positioning yourself, designing your entire career around that. You see, that first one more or less speaks to a particularly defined organizational structure part-time. Second one is not limited by an industry. Second one is not limited by an organization. Is very broad. It's about strategically positioning yourself to rise to the summit of your career. My advice for any employee who really thinks they need a career pivot is to develop capacity. There are transitioning. You can transition within an organization and transition outside an organization. You can also transition outside a sector or industry as well. Whichever bucket you find yourself, whether it's in the bucket of moving up the ladder within an organization, or transitioning to another organization, or transitioning out of the industry sector, it's important that you develop the required skill to do that. If you're transitioning within an organization or outside of an organization, you have to do it professionally. Again, I would advise you do not go on to communicate your transition plan or your exiting plan when you are not ready. I mean, I've seen people or employees make this mistake where they already communicate with other people within the organization internally, and HR is hearing from gossip that somebody is planning to transition out of the organization, and then organization begins to swing into the planning mode for that person's or that individual's exit, and then things don't turn out and you're no longer living. So when transitioning, it's important that you plan it, give yourself a timeline, communicate officially with the organization. And like I said before, depending on what kind of transition, let the strategy be influenced by the idea of whether it's within, outside, or outside of the sector. Thank you.